see? You would see parentheses, meaning that all of this stuff is being raised to the negative 2. If there are no parentheses, it's only the number or letter directly in front of the exponent. Okay, so the first thing we do is identify what needs to be moved. Yes, ma'am?
But like whenever you flip, does the V is power go before the V2?
It doesn't matter, because you're going to combine them eventually. Okay? So the first thing we take care of is the fact that I know this needs to move. And I know this needs to move because they each contain a set of instructions saying invert this number or invert this variable. So when I do that, I have 4 still in the numerator. I have z to the 5th still in the numerator. But now I've brought up z squared. In the denominator, 6 is still there. X is still there. But I've brought down 2 more x's. And so now what I'm doing is dividing 4 by 6, which is 2/3, okay? And then I can't cancel any z's or x's. I have to actually put them together. Because in the numerator, how many total z's are being multiplied?
7.
And in the denominator, how many total x's?
3.
So this is your final answer. 2z to the 7th divided by 3x cubed. Now we need to get used to simplifying our variable expressions. And when I say simplify them, it means if you have coefficients that can be reduced, reduce them. Do not give me this as a final answer right here. The fraction's not reduced. The coefficients are not reduced. The z's are not combined, and the x's are not combined. Do not give me a final answer where you still have the same letter in the numerator and the denominator, because you have not canceled. You have not reduced. Okay? And final answers must not contain negative exponents. It's just ugly. All right. So let's go back real quick before we do something new. Stay with me, please. $25 coefficient, the number in front. X is the variable. 3 is the exponent. Okay? What does a negative exponent mean? Take the inverse. Flip it. When we're multiplying monomials, add your exponents. When you're dividing monomials, subtract your exponents. Decide where you have more and move it. Okay? Now, what if we are raising a power to a power? X, yes, sir. You would multiply, exactly. But let's see why we multiply. X squared raised to the 5th power means that I have 5 little groups of x squareds, because they're all being multiplied by each other. Well, if this is straight multiplication, we would add 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 and get 10. Shortcut, 5 groups of 2 means 5 times 2, x to the 10. Powers to powers, we multiply the exponents together. And we're going to look at several examples where we do this. Elizabeth Bays, pick your head up. Okay. 4x to the 4th And the whole thing is squared. All right, well, x to the 4th squared is x to the 8th. Now, here's where some of you may get confused. 4 squared, 4 is not an exponent. 4 is a number. It's 4. When I square 4, I'm multiplying it by itself. It's 4 times 4, not 4 times 2. So the final answer here would be 16x to the 8th power. So when you get coefficients thrown in there, don't get confused. When you get negative numbers being squared, what happens to any negative number that's squared?
Positive.
It becomes positive. What happens to any negative number that's cubed?
Negative.
It stays negative because you're multiplying a negative 3 times, an odd number of times. John Bostic, what is negative 100 raised to the 81st power going to be? The sign. The sign. Is it going to be positive or negative?
Positive.
Negative. Why is it going to be negative? It's an odd number of powers. The 81st power is an odd number. You're multiplying a negative an odd number of times. So it's still going to be negative. Now in this case, now we're combining a negative exponent and a power to a power. It's not negative 25. Remember, the negative with the exponent is not what we're used to. It's a set of instructions saying invert the base of this exponent. Well, what's the base of it? All that stuff. 5y cubed. So if I'm going to invert 5y cubed, I'm going to get 1 over 5y cubed.
Do you have a calculator that I can borrow? So I don't see you over here.
Can you leave?
Can you just write something?
Bring it back. You know this? Teach you something, okay? Excuse me, Miss Sally. Do you have a calculator I can borrow? Now, we know that our answer is going to be a fraction. 1 over something. Well, we go back to what we just did. We've got 5 being squared, which means it's 5 times 5, and y cubed being squared, which what do we do with the exponents? Multiply them. So the answer to that problem is 1 over 25x to, y to the 6th power. Fix your negative exponents first. That should be the very first thing that you do. Because otherwise you may get confused, just like Hurley just did, and say, oh, that's negative 25. Okay? It's a different kind of negative. All right, now let's talk about what does a 0 exponent mean. We've already said that when you are dividing variables, you're going to subtract the exponents, correct? Okay, so 5 minus 5 is 0. So this is x to the 0 power. Agree? Okay, but now let's go back to like 2nd grade. When you divide, not 2nd grade, I guess that would be 3rd grade. When you divide a number by itself, what is the answer? 1. So x to the 5th divided by x to the 5th is 1 because all of the x's cancel, correct? So if this is x to the 0 power and we know it's 1, then x to the 0 power must be 1. Well, guess what? Anything to the 0 power is 1 because a 0 exponent means that you just took something and divided it by itself. Okay? Yes. It's 1. Watch.